Welcome everyone. Today we're going to take a look at video uploads, specifically trying to kind of incorporate that with learning the Vuetify documentation. I'm not going to be teaching you every single command and stuff like that. I'm just going to teach you how to use the documentation by letting you watch how I use it and basically explaining the patterns between components and what you can find and how to look for stuff, okay? Because learning commands individually is, or like learning components and everything, the documentation it has is a lost cause, all right? But nevertheless, also, if you want to use Rider or you want to try Rider, there is a trial extension code that lets you extend your trial period for 3 months. So go ahead and grab the trial version first and then extend it by 3 months using the code. That's a total of 4 months. Hopefully, the tutorial will be finished by then. Nevertheless, let's get started. So we're going to do a little bit of cleanup first, and then we're going to dive in. So I have .NET Watch Run running. I have my Nuxt application running. Let's go ahead, close this top to bottom. Let's go ahead and clean this stuff up because there is boilerplate stuff we want to bear or a scratch experience, right? So readme, get this guy out of here, variables.css, a bunch of comments. If you know CSS, this stuff is easy. Get this thing out of here. We'll leave the variables file, just have it empty. Asset set's done. Component. Don't need these components. Wait. What is this, right? Layouts, readme. Let's get rid of the readme. Default, we will use the default. So you gotta be careful here not to delete one thing, and I think we'll end up editing it anyway. But the navigation drawer, so you can kind of grab it, maybe collapse it, and then just delete the line, right? And then that gets rid of it. So the navigation drawer is the thing that sort of pulls out on the side if you're not familiar. Again, up bar, not something you need. It's the navigation bar at the top. It's called an up bar because it relates to this vapp component. Vapp component is the root of your Vuetify application, okay? We had that there, vcontent. This is where you have your Nuxt component. Don't delete this. This is where the pages are displayed, okay? The rest of the stuff is for Vuetify to function. Next, we have a navigation drawer again. Get this out of here. And footer, we'll probably be bringing that back in again, but once we actually need it, right? For the data here, get this out of here. We don't have any data, right? Empty component, no data, nothing. Let's go ahead and close this. Error, we will not touch error because there's a bunch of useful stuff here. So if we get 404s, I want to know what this is. We will learn how to integrate with it later. So that's that. Middleware, no middleware. Let's go ahead, delete it. We'll take a look if we can take advantage of that later on. Pages, Inspire, I know we don't need the Inspire page. We're not using it. Let's go ahead and remove it. Let's take a look at the index page. The whole thing with the layout and the flex, we don't need it. Let's go ahead and just use the div here, cut this, put this at the bottom. There may be like a wrap keybind, I'm not sure. That should be good enough. Minimal setup is how I like it. Plugins, readme, get this out of here. Static, I'm gonna delete everything except the favicon. I don't want the 404s, those are just annoying. We'll replace this when time comes. And stores are more or less okay, alright? The readme here, really don't need it. Let's get out of there. And if you want if you're using Rider again, you just go ahead and look for plugins. And these are just some of the plugins that I have, and you should have the Markdown plugin if you want to view Markdown or preview Markdown files, okay? I'm pretty sure something similar exists for Visual Studio and VS Code. Okay, so just look for it if you need this sort of stuff. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what our application looks like. No such components. Okay, that's fine. If we go into index and we go into the components that we have registered here, let's go ahead remove that. Let's take a look at the imports. We're missing a bunch of imports. Let's remove that what we're not using. Let's go ahead back here, refresh. And here we have it, all right? So our initial setup again, we will now go ahead and dive into the world of Vuetify and uploading a file. So I'm already landed here on the documentation of file inputs. Let's go ahead and maybe start with a little bit more real approach, right? Because you're gonna Google, you're gonna land on the main page, and we're gonna go to the get started page, and you're here, right? So text on the left, text in the center, text on the right, navigation bar at the top. What the hell do you look at? What do you want to find? What do you need, right? So pause the video here and go ahead and read the introduction and get started to get kind of maybe an idea of what this is if you're completely lost about what Vuetify is. Otherwise, just continue, right? So primary 3 sections that you're interested in is customization, style animations, and UI components. Go ahead and go ahead and glance over them. Just see what's in here, what are these sections, and what these allow you to find out, right? So when you're later on, I want to do this thing, and you're already kind of know, maybe if I want to change the color or the layout, I want to look at style and animations, where they explain how to use the flexbox elevation feature, which is basically how popping your component is, and then colors. So if we go to colors, we can see a wide range of colors that you can use, their names, their shades, what the actual color is, how to override this stuff, etc. Right? So very customizable framework. Primarily, what do we want to do? Not to get lost, we want to upload a video. Okay, so we want a component for it. We want to build some kind of UI for uploading a video, right? So usually all the components that you can think of are already created. You just got to choose the right one. Okay, so we're going to go into the UI components. We're going to scroll down, and again, I recommend to pause the video here and just look through what kind of components are available to you. And generally, we will just really agonize this file input component so you kind of understand what this documentation provides. So form inputs, file inputs, let's go ahead, open this. You will get a gentle introduction of the component that you can use and the tag, right? So let's go ahead and grab a kind of copy from here. So let's go ahead, just actually remove these components here. And at the top here, we will say v file input. And there we go. That was the first thing that popped up, right? So if we go back here, I already have the file input. I can click on it and grab the file. What's the rest of the documentation, right? So there is, like, you can scroll up and down. It's like 10 miles long. What do you do here? So the first thing is you get like a little sandbox, kind of an example of what is possible here, right? So you can play around with it and get a feel. So again, I recommend to go check out other components and play around with this initial sandbox that's provided there, so you know, understand what the component is. Next is the API. This is the most important part, where you really want to find out if something is possible with a component. Okay, so all of these examples and the sandbox will not be able to tell you everything about this specific component. What you do is you go into this API, and for example, how we add a label, and we use vModel. This is the stuff that you're gonna be able to find in here. So if, for example, let's search for a label, you can see that it has a prop of labels of a label, so we can attach a label to this as well. Slots. What kind of slots? If you're not familiar with Vue.js slots, go ahead and look it up. But again, you can sort of say where do you want which icon. Also for the initial props, if we go straight to the top, you will see stuff like append icon, append outer icon. There will be also a P section for prepend. So append is on the end, prepend is at the beginning. So it depends on where you want to put the icon, right? So basically, this is all the stuff that you can customize about the element, all right? And the cool thing about this is that the naming is really good, and usually all of these customizations are shared between different components, okay? So for example, stuff like, let's see, loading. If an input field is loading or is a component loading, it will gray it out. It will put a circle in there to circulate. You can do stuff, for example, like height, full width, flat, and flat has to do with elevation. The part that you have in the styles here, elevation, so how popping is your component, or is it flat, kind of thing, okay? And again, the more you look through this, the more of an idea you get about what you can use and reuse between components, okay? So, and by the way, if you scroll a little bit down, you have examples, right? So on the right here, in this column, you have like a little navigation in this section. If you go to the examples, you have examples in CodePen. So you can open it up, you can see what the code is consists of and what do you need to get that example working, okay? So it's really cool in that sense as well. So what do we want? We want to upload videos. A lot of the stuff gets passed down into the bottom component. So all of these components are built on top of the input component. So input component can accept stuff like MIME types, is it multiple and stuff like that. And again, this is something that something that you will just be able to find. And if I scroll through here, yeah, multiple. So multiple files, single file, etc. Right? So we upload a file. We want to see what's up with it. So let's see events. This is the stuff that is going to happen with it. We can click on it. We can click append. So for example, if we click on the icon instead of clicking on the input field itself, right? So you can bind the different elements that you click on, okay? So we just want a simple change. Upload a file, do something with it, okay? So on change, and this is again something that you can just know from knowing vanilla JavaScript, like on change, on click. This is the stuff that you already know. And I'm selecting the wrong field there, but let's go ahead and say on change, handle, file. We're going to copy the function name. We're going to go to the methods section. And again, pardon the messiness, bear with it. We will clean this up. Since I'm going to be uploading this, I'm going to preemptively make this asynchronous. And in here, we can see that we're going to get a file array. So let's go ahead and call this files. Let's go ahead and say console log files. Going back here, let's go ahead F12 to the console. I'll make this a little bit smaller, clear this out, and let's select a file. So I'll just upload an image for now. You can see that here is the file with all its information, and we can go ahead and here actually clear the file as well. So let's clear it, and we get undefined. Okay, so this is essentially the file that gets uploaded, and as you see, it's not an actual array because we don't have the multiples tag. If we had multiple file uploads, this would be a files array. So we want to guard against the undefined, so we will say if no file, return, and we'll change this to file because we will only want to be uploading one file per user, right? So once we get the file, let's go ahead and also narrow it down to only be videos. I'm gonna go ahead and put accept video slash star, so all video MIME types. And again, this is something that exists on the original input. Let's go and say accept, right? So this is where you're gonna get IntelliSense. And whoa, I get all types of videos, right? So there's a lot of videos. I don't want to basically narrow it down to some specific one. I will just say just upload a video, dude. Okay, so we can select a video on change. We'll try to upload this file. Let's go ahead and grab Nuxtjs. I'll need to re-import it. Let's go ahead post. And I will Control-Shift-N to open up my tricks store. I will select the URL here. And let's go ahead and put it here. Instead of tricks, I'll just say videos. Okay. Let's make this async. Oh, wait. Await. Let's say var result. I'll grab it. And let's make this const. Usually you never want to use var, either const or let. All right. Make this const, and then we'll just console log result, and we'll say result here. Okay, so we're posting. We're not posting anything. What do we actually need to post once we got the file? First thing, let's go ahead and create something called form data. Okay, so how you would usually have a form here with the input fields, with the relative name. Again, if you know HTML, you know how to make a form. Instead of having it in its HTML form, we're going to create it programmatically through JavaScript. So let's go ahead and create our form. form data. And once we got a form, we want to add an input field. So form, append, name, this is the key. All right, so this is the thing that we're going to use to bind this name. We put it here. I'm just going to say video, and the actual data is the actual file. And all we need to do then is just post it, right? Same as JSON, we just send it. It just ends up as text or zeros, ones, whatever text is zeros and ones. It's just a digital waveform in your file, okay? Make a form, append the file to it, send it to the controller that we don't have yet. Let's go ahead and make it as well. I'll remove this form here as this was a quick example. Let's go ahead Alt-1 to jump to the menu up here. Open this up, controllers, and one thing I noticed is when practicing is navigating to controllers that don't have controllers in the file name is rather hard. So let's actually go ahead and rename these to have controller in their names, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and grab controller here. I'm gonna go to tricks and I'm gonna append controller to the class name and constructor and file. There's probably a smart shortcut key here, but I don't know it. So maybe if we edit the file first. Nope. I'm okay with it, right? So home controller, text controller, and video controller. Cool. So let's go ahead, maybe closed a little bit too much. That's why I'm just gonna go ahead and close all, open up the index view again, where we upload or handle the file and the videos controller. So same as before, CB and maybe base, controller base. Grab or we don't need an API controller. However, I will still put a route on here. Because we're not doing any JSON communication, we don't need to specify that this is an API controller. What we want to say here is API/videos. So we are going to be only uploading videos. You can see there, right there, this is a typo notification. So it just tells me there's a typo there, something that Visual Studio doesn't do, and I find it quite handy. It's a lifesaver. So yep. API/videos. Let's go ahead and create an HTTP post because we are posting to API/videos, so we don't need to append any route here. Let's say public action result, and let's give it a meaningful name. So upload video, and we're just gonna grab an iForm file. iForm file is an interface for, if we still have this here. No, so when you've seen the console log that we were doing of the file, it's essentially an interface for that. So you will find much of the same information on the iForm file. So if we go into here, content type, again, is it an MP4? What kind of, or is it an image? Length, how many bytes it is, a message, a name, file name, maybe seems like the same thing, but probably not. And open a read stream if we want to save it to disk, etc. Right? So let's go ahead and name it video. It is crucial that you name it video because this is the name that we've given it. Okay, so video binds to video. In the end, let's go ahead and just return OK. And I've actually inherited from collection base. This is why I don't have OK. Let's say controller base. All right. So we're inheriting from controller base because I am using a .NET Watch Run. I don't want to shut my application down and initialize a debugger. So if I upload it now, I kind of want to make sure that the file is here. So what I will do is I'll put a breakpoint here. If you press Ctrl-Shift-A, you will go into the Actions menu, or you can do Shift-Shift if you're using, what's it called? This is only if you're using Writer, right? So here what I want to do is I don't want to interrupt my .NET Watch Run session. You can still do this in Visual Studio. I'm not sure about VS Code if you can like attach to a process and then detach from it. What you can do is you can search for attach to process, and again you can do this sort of camel case ATP, maybe not so good, ATP, yeah, attach to process. I know it also shows you the keybind, so if you want to quickly realize what keybind you're using, you can use that. So I'm going to do Ctrl-Alt-F5. It's going to collect all the processes that I can connect to, and here you can see the .NET Core processes. I want to look for something resembling my tricking library. So here I can see the namespace tricking library.api. Let's go ahead, click on that, and that will basically just attach a debugging session to the process, right? And that's separate from the actual thing in the command line. So I never need to interrupt the .NET watch run command. Okay. So the breakpoint is here. Let's go ahead back to the browser. I'm just gonna go ahead and select a file. This is a video uploading service. Make sure you have your own samples of files, right? Let's go ahead, open this up. We hit the breakpoint. We have a video. Let's go ahead, take a look at it. Yeah, you can hover over it, or you have the immediate the what's called the window down here. Expand the video. You have the content type, file name, length, so how many bytes it is, etc. All is good, right? So we have our video file. Just return OK. And now that we're done with debugging, we don't want the debugging session to slow us down. Let's go ahead and stop this. And again, this doesn't actually stop our .NET Watch Run session. So if we go back here, we can see .NET Watch Run is still running. So we don't touch that. Close the console and remove the breakpoint. Now let's go ahead and actually save this file, right? So saving files is not too hard. Let's go ahead and Alt and insert, and we will do directory. So let's add a directory that's going to be called www-root. And this is just something that's recognized within the .NET Core environment, which is what we can use. Okay, so in here we will get a constructor where I will use a iWeb host environment, and I'll call this env. Alt enter, generate a new variable, and all that this will let me do is just easily point to this www-root folder. Okay, so let's go in here and let's create a save path equals. What we want to do is we want to go into the environment and we want to grab the web root path. So the web root path is the www-root, content root path is the root of your project. Okay, so web root path, and we want to go ahead and add on it a file name, right? So we're not going to do anything crazy with the folders just yet, because we're going to end up putting it in a bucket anyway. So for now, we're just going to go ahead and dump the file in there. And just more of a correct way to concatenate and generate file names, there is the path directory, which we can go ahead, press enter to, or yep, import this. Let's go ahead, say combine. So we will say that we want to take the web root path and we want to combine it with path. And in here, there will be a get random file name, and this will just generate a random file name for multiple reasons. Do not grab the file name from the file that's being uploaded. Okay, always create your own file name. So we have the save path because we took the web root path and we just appended a file name to it. One thing that I still want to do is I just want to make sure that the MIME type is more or less correct. So let's go ahead and grab the MIME of the video. So file name, split by dot, and then just grab last, right? Because it's going to be something dot mp4 or whatever. I'm just going to grab the what's called the type on the end. Okay, and then we'll just append it to here. So dot, and we can do, or let's go ahead and say file name equals string concat. We'll do the random name, the dot, and the MIME, right? Not bad. Put the file name in here. We have the save path. Let's go ahead and grab a using statement where we just want a file stream. So new file stream, where we first want to provide the save path, and then we want a file mode of create, since we're going to be creating, and then file access of write. So create a file, we want to create, write, and where do we want to do it? Right there. Okay, so all we have to do then is we'll just grab the video, and there's a convenient method in here, copy to async, and then we just provide the stream that we want to put it in. Okay, we can await on this, and if you're in writer, you can just alt enter on await and make the method async task. Otherwise, you have to, go up and change it. From here on, I don't need to do much more. It is giving me a suggestion to use the await here. I don't actually fully know what this syntax does when we await the using statement, but I guess it won't hurt. So I guess the IDE knows better. Make sure you put this there. I will provide some more information on this later. But yeah, this should be it. Let's go ahead and check the state of our application. Recompile has started. It is working. Let's go ahead and upload the file. So we're just gonna grab a video, open it, and this should just make a random file name, and let's see if it's actually working. So Ctrl+Shift+E for me is open in Explorer. So let's go ahead and see if this is working. Yep, so a working video, right? Okay, so we have file uploads working. I think I'll cut the video here because I want to kind of preserve the topic of this video and solve some issues with my ID that I have noticed during recording of this. So nevertheless, if you enjoyed this video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. I stream on Wednesdays and Sundays and sometimes other days. I post updates in the Discord channel, so make sure you join that, and you can also ask questions there. Make sure to have a good day, and hopefully I'll see you in my other episodes.